If we eviscerate our First Amendment rights, we will no longer have a country where people can freely speak their minds.
Have you been able to...
Hey there, folks. Welcome to another amazing video on our channel. Today, we've got an absolute gem for you. We are diving into a recent interview with Trump attorney John Lauro on NBC's Meet the Press with Chuck Todd. Trust me, if you've got about 8 minutes to spare, you definitely want to stick around for this one. Lauro is a true legend when it comes to effective communication on the national stage. Now, as many of you know, I've been in the field of communications for more than 2 decades, first as a journalist and then as a communications director on Capitol Hill. And let me tell you, I have come across only a handful of communicators who can hold a candle to John Lauro. This man is an absolute master at defending our First Amendment, the right to free speech, and our beloved Constitution. But before we jump into it, don't forget to drop a comment down below and let us know what you think. And hey, show us some love by hitting that like button, sharing this video with your buddies, and subscribing to Americans for Limited Government on YouTube and Rumble. Trust me, you won't want to miss out on all the amazing content we have in store for you. So all right, let's get back to business. This next clip is truly powerful. Lauro takes us back to January of 2021 and asks us to remember the facts as we knew them on that day. It's a thought-provoking moment that will surely make you reflect.
Protected. Let's go back, if we could, and see what was going on January 6th. Both Vice President Pence and President Trump saw that they had 10 million votes more than they had in 2016. No president has ever lost under those circumstances. They also saw that Joe Biden outperformed Hillary Clinton by 15 million votes, even though she was an inspirational candidate and Joe Biden was sitting at home in his basement. They also saw that President Trump won almost all of the disputed counties. In addition, they had over 1,000 people come forward and under oath say that there were discrepancies in the election. And finally, and most importantly, what President Trump and Vice President Pence saw were that the rules of the game had been changed by local electoral officials contrary to the state legislatures. So he took what he was entitled to do, which was petition Vice President Pence on January 6th. Once that petition was completed and Vice President Pence rejected his position, it was over and there was a peaceful transition of power. Mr. Trump had every right to petition government and enforce his First Amendment rights. That's why this indictment is an attack on the First Amendment. The government, the Biden administration, would have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump did not believe that he had won the election. They will never be able to do that, and that's why this prosecution is so ill-conceived. What he's being indicted for ultimately is following legal advice from an esteemed scholar, John Eastman, that he could petition his own vice president and ask his vice president to pause the voting on January 6th to give the states one last chance to certify or re-audit. That was the ultimate ask that President Trump made in his ellipse speech. That's clearly protected. What we had was a very, very thoughtful memo by John Eastman, who was a professor of law, dean of a law school, head of a constitutional scholarship program, and well understood and well renowned. He had been a Supreme Court clerk and a Fourth Circuit clerk. Even Mike Pence said he was the legal scholar that was developing a lot of these points. People disagree about constitutional principles all the time. Certainly, Mr. Barr may have disagreed with Mr. Eastman. That happens every day in our government. It never leads to a criminal charge. But one thing for certain, President Trump acted under the advice of counsel when he petitioned, under the First Amendment, petitioned Mr. Pence.
So let me understand
and that's legally protected speech.
So what you're arguing is if the president did violate the law, he did so because he got advice from counsel to violate the law?
No, that's what people misunderstand. In order to have a violation of law, you have to have criminal intent, and in this case, corrupt intent. And what that means is that you have to have some desire to do something unlawful. If your attorney is telling you that you have a right to petition Congress, then that completely eliminates any criminal intent.
Now let's tackle the recent comments made by former Vice President Mike Pence that the media has been using to stir up controversy. There's definitely some tension between Trump and Pence on this issue, but Lauro fearlessly addresses it head on. It's a clip you don't want to skip.
If you read Vice President Pence's book, he agrees completely with President Trump that there were these anomalies, discrepancies, even fraud in the election. Vice President Pence wanted those debated in Congress. President Trump asked that they be debated at the state legislature. So you had a disagreement there. But once again, these kinds of constitutional and statutory disagreements don't lead to criminal charges. And one thing that Mr. Pence has never said is that he thought President Trump was acting criminally. Indeed, Vice President Pence is an attorney. If he at any point said or thought that President Trump was acting unlawfully or contrary to criminal law, he would have said that. No one ever suggested that. This is going to be the most important civil rights constitutional case in decades. And there's one other issue that's very important. Everything that President Trump did was while he was in office as a president. He is now immune from prosecution for acts that he takes in connection with those policy decisions.
So you're going to try to...
The Biden administration has not addressed that. Chuck, have you read the First Amendment? I mean, political speech is the most protected speech that we have under our Constitution. It's important to go back and read the text of the First Amendment. So you can actually say that a government official is acting criminally. That's protected by the First Amendment. If we lose the First Amendment rights, then heaven forbid we lose the right to freedom of the press. We lose the right for me to appear. We lose the right for you to speak.
You're not allowed to use speech. You're not allowed to use speech, though, in order to get somebody to commit a crime. And what he was directing Raffensperger to do was to
advocate.
So you have to. No, you're saying he didn't commit a crime.
You haven't read the cases because, for example, you can encourage someone not to register for selective service. I could see you, Chuck, registering for Vietnam, and I can go up to you and say, Chuck, don't register for that war. It's illegal.
And I violated the law.
Keep walking. Go home. No, that's protected speech. My speech is protected. That's the point.
You coerced me to violate the law.
I can ask you. No. And by the way, there's a Supreme Court case. You got to read it. Right on point, Hammerschmidt, and it says that's not illegal. We can have this discussion, but people need to start looking carefully at what our country stands for, what the Constitution stands for. It applies to President Trump just like it applies to everyone else.
And finally, folks, brace yourself as Lauro closes out this interview by shedding light on the recent history of the Department of Justice going after individuals for purely political reasons. The jaw-dropping part is how all these cases were unanimously reversed by the U.S. Supreme Court. It's a powerful reminder of the challenges we face in maintaining justice and fairness in our country.
We'll say this. There has been a history in the Justice Department of rogue prosecutions. They went after Arthur Andersen, a major accounting firm, destroyed the company, and the DOJ lost 9-0. They went after the former governor of Virginia in a prosecution, a Republican governor who was convicted unfairly, reversed 9-0. And now the Justice Department, the Biden Justice Department, is going after a former president for acts that he carried out in fulfillment of his oath as president of the United States.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. And remember to show us some love by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. Stay informed, stay engaged. Until next time, take care.